coffins.
That's dope.
So just make me a quill pen coffin.
A quill pen?
A quill pen.
I don't know what I want, but I want something interesting.
Music note.
A music note? You're not about to have me bent up. What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets React, and we're back with another video.
Yeah, think about going to Africa. Where do you think I should go? Oh, I think you're Ghana, like my answer. Tanzania. Now you wouldn't last 3 days here. Go to Ghana.
It's time to learn geography.
Now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. Ghana is kind of like Africa for beginners. People usually come here to test out their sub-Saharan excursion skills before taking off the training wheels and venturing deep into the interior savannas and jungles. So if that's you, your first assignment is to report to Accra and Kumasi at 0700 hours. Move out, soldier!
Okay.
Fun side note, the word Ghana means warrior king, harkening back to the Ghana Empire in the 4th century AD, which actually wasn't even located in Ghana. Anyway, Ghana is a country about the size of Romania, located in West Africa along the Guinea Gulf, bordered by the Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Togo. Ghana is also one of the only 8 countries that passes through the Prime Meridian, as well as Antarctica in the south. The country is made up of 10 regions with some interesting sounding capitals like Wa, Ho, and Tamale, and of course the capital, Accra, yes, that's how you pronounce it, Accra, located in the southeast along the coast. The 2 largest airports are, of course, the capital, Accra Kotoka International, and the 2nd largest one, Kumasi International, located further inland.
Hey, Barbs.
Yeah, what's up?
The colonial regions are cool and all, but tell them about the tribal and ethnic regions.
You know what, Noah?
That's what we want to know about.
Because you're the guy with the better voice.
Don't mind if I do. The north is primarily inhabited by the Mole Dagbani peoples. The north central area has the Guan group. The southeast, including the capital Accra, is dominated by the Ewe and Ga Adangbe people. Then you get this huge chunk of the west, center, and south areas where you can find the famous Akan and Ashanti peoples. Sometimes this area is collectively referred to as Ashanti.
Wow,
I'm actually-
Noah, that was,
I am actually doing some research on the Ashanti people for a book.
Wow.
Very, very, very interested to see if they go a little bit deeper into this.
I don't want the audience liking you more than me. Get out. Now, Ghana is a constitutional republic, but nonetheless still kind of technically has a king, or disputably regional kings that act more like cultural figureheads rather than governmentally sanctioned legislators. However, these kings still do hold high positions of influence in society. Nonetheless, the most notable and powerful of all these kings would probably be the monarch Asantehene Nana Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, who rules over Ashanti.
He said that well.
Yeah, he did.
The Ashanti capital, Kumasi. Otherwise, other notable landmarks in Ghana might include the Elmina Castle, the oldest European building in sub-Saharan Africa, built in 1482, as well as the Cape Coast Castle. Each one has a dark history, being used for importing slaves.
Yeah, I heard of that.
With the bronze statue of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, not to be confused with the vandalized statue of him during the coup d'etat years. Independence Arch, Usur Fort, the Kakrum Canopy Walk, Tengzun Shrine, and the Agbog Bloshi, the world's largest digital waste dump where criminals try to hack into confidential governmental computers.
Oh,
and
wow.
the Kejetia Market, the largest in Africa, located in Kumasi in Ashantiland. And Ghana even has its own space center, the Ghana Science and Technology Center. And those are just the man-made landmarks. Let's see what Mother Nature brings to the table.
Okay. Because
Now,
those
when
were
it comes to land,
beautiful.
Ghana kind of like accidentally broke a world record. I'm talking about Lake Volta, the world's largest man-made lake fed by the Black, White, and Red Volta rivers. I remember the Burkina Faso episode. If you look at the map, this massive 400-kilometer-long body of water that scars the southeast side of Ghana, taking up about 4% of the land, is actually a reservoir byproduct created after the construction of one little guy, the Akosombo Dam. Granted, thousands of people and animals were displaced in the process of the flooding of the basin, but this one little dam produces much of the electricity for the entire country, with leftover to export to neighboring countries for external revenue. It was kind of like,
So your home will be underwater in a couple months.
get out! What? I guess it was worth it. Now, the country is divided into 4 geographic terrestrial plains. The coastal plain, the Shanti Kwahu, the Volta Basin, and the northern plains. Basically, the south is wetter and the north is drier, sometimes even subject to those harmattan winds. Remember the Burkina Faso episode? With a more sparsely populated area, the north is home to open savannas and the largest nature reserve, Mole National Park, where you can see animals like elephants, hippos, baboons, crocodiles, and the national animal, the golden eagle. Man, mole, tamale, all these Spanish words. I'm surprised the Spanish had nothing to do with Ghana.
Or did they?
No, they actually literally didn't. Like almost every European country, even Sweden, got in on it.
You know, I think they're actually pretty okay. They have their whole side investment going on anyway, right?
Ghana is also the second largest cocoa producer after the Ivory Coast. Cadbury, the company that makes those diabetically amazing Easter eggs, actually imports 90% of their cocoa from Ghana and is actually second in Africa in gold production after South Africa. Gold plays a huge role in Ghana.
Oh.
In fact,
No, that's
we
right.
counted the area as the Gold Coast during colonial times due to the high amount of gold reserves found throughout the country, especially in Ashanti land. This is why you shouldn't be surprised to find more gold material in Kumasi and the surrounding areas. Of course, agriculture-wise, typical African cash crops and staples like cassava, yams, cotton, rubber, sugar, and palm oil are produced along with kenaf, the jack-of-all-trades crop. You can use the fibers in rope, twine, crude cloth, paper, bags. You can even feed it to your animals and use it as their bedding. It's kind of like jute.
Wow.
Remember the Bangladesh episode? Man, today is just like a reference overload. Of course, the staple dish made out of cassava and plantain powder is called fufu, a starchy substance typically
famous.
used with stews and meats. Just a little side note, fufu, which goes by many other different names in Africa like sadza, nshima, and ugali, is kind of like the staple for many sub-Saharan African countries. It's like what rice is to Asians and bread is to Europeans. Famous national dishes include things like kenke dumplings, wache, and be careful when mentioning jollof rice. Make sure there are no Nigerians around.
We invented it. Ours is better.
The interesting thing, though, is that although historically Ghana was dominated by an agrarian and mineral extraction-based economy, they really branched out and diversified their business portfolio. In 2011, they gained the title of the world's fastest-growing economy. Now Ghana focuses on things like the manufacturing industry, electronics, technology, and recently, after an oil reserve was discovered in 2007, the hydrocarbon export sector as well, which supplies over $1.5 billion extra dollars in state revenue. This is partially why Ghana has one of the lowest unemployment rates in all of Africa.
Oh, wow.
6 to 8% annually. They're even slated to join the list of automobile manufacturing countries, as well as they just launched their own domestic brand, Kantanka. Otherwise, other amazing natural zones would include places.
Okay, hold on. It's hard to pause this video.
It is. It's interesting.
Yes, because of how he present the material. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a teacher.
Yeah.
But-
yeah. His speech was crazy, especially pronouncing these words.
Yes, so let's talk about the new car that they built.
That's awesome. I think just because they're in Africa, don't think that they don't have the technology, the skill set, or the mind frame to do
Yes.
such amazing work. And then when you hear Africa, people automatically think what? Nature, hippos, birds, lions, which they already have. But they also have great individuals who can do wonderful works.
Yes.
I remember that this one little gentleman. I read up on this invention he did. Right, so he had his family in his in their.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
And I don't want to mispronounce anything cultural wise, but he had his family and he built lights around
Yeah.
his home so the lions can stay out at night.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. We discovered that recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say recently.
yeah.
Yeah. So cars, it doesn't blow me away that they can do it. I know
the
they got it like that.
technology,
Yeah.
the manufacturing, the oil. That is amazing. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Susua and Kokrobite beaches, the Paga crocodile.
Come on, man.
Hold up.
Okay, hold on. Let me just pause this, boy. Boy, they up in here petting the crocodile, right?
No. I am not surprised. Remember that that video we saw of the zoo? They had a zoo, but it was like wild animals that they had under their control. Like the snakes, they could tell the snakes what to do. The snakes would do it. I am not surprised.
Even the hyenas. I wouldn't be surprised if you pull up a picture of them on a hyena.
Whew.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Tampa Waterfalls, Lake Bosuntwe, Umbrella Rock. And when in doubt, just take a little cruise on Lake Volta. Maybe go fishing for a little bit. And it's probably best to have a local show you these areas because, you know, locals are the best, aren't they? Here's some more on them.
Let's learn about the people.
Now, Ghana is not only like Africa's training wheels, but also like Africa's first main sub-Saharan contact to Europe. And yes, the Saharan and Sahel West Coast areas like Senegal and the Gambia had already been discovered, but essentially it wasn't until the Portuguese explorer Fernão Gomes came in the 15th century and established the Elmina settlement, regarded as the first European settlement in sub-Saharan Africa. Ghana has always been kind of seen as like a beacon of democracy in Africa, in which this guy handed over power to John Kufuor, making it the first peaceful democratic transition since independence in 1956. 1867, which also made them the first colonial sub-Saharan African country to gain independence from a European power. I mean, technically Liberia gained independence in the 1840s, but it was a confusing U.S.-aided resettlement program and not so much a colony, but make of it what you will. First of all, Ghana has about 27 million people and usually scores in the top most democratic, transparent, stable, and safe nations in all of Africa. The country is made up of over 70 different tribes and over 200 different dialects. However, most of them fall under 5 main ethnic groups. The majority belonging to the Ashanti or Akan, making up about half of the population. The Dagbani and Mole at around 17%. Ewe at around 14%.
Glad he put that on
to other peoples
That's,
like the Ga Adangbe,
that clears up a lot.
The remaining 2-ish% are made up of non-Africans and whites. Also, they use the type G and D plug outlets. They drive on the right side of the road, and they use the Cedi, which is their currency, which also translates to cowrie shell, since those were used as currency at one point in time. Ghana is also very religious. The majority of the population, about 3/4, is Christian, mostly Protestant and Pentecostal. About 15% are Muslim, and the rest adhere to traditional beliefs and faiths. Now, each of the main people groups has a very distinct culture that contrasts with the others, along with mutually unintelligible languages. Nonetheless, English is still used for cross-communication by the majority of the population, as it was a former British colony. The most widely spoken native language, though, would have to be Twi, or various dialects of Twi, spoken by the Akan and Ashanti people. Some say it's also mutually intelligible with Fante and Brong, and it's kind of just like a dialect thing, like English from America and English from Scotland. You know, there's a lot of different types of Scottish. No, I'm not even going to try. Ga is spoken in the southeast and is said to have originated from Nigeria, whereas Ewe is a language more prevalent and indigenous to Togo, and Dagbani and Mole is spoken in the north and are more closely related to the Mosi language. Remember the Burkina Faso episode? Okay, we get it. Just click on the annotation and rewatch the Burkina Faso episode. Hey, it was a good episode, okay? I had fun making it. I mean, African cowboys, come on. Ghanaian culture, though, is a lot more than just Ashanti. Ewe peoples in the east, for example, are known for being amazing cross-rhythm drummers and performers of dances, and also the originators of voodoo. The North Dagomba areas have a more Islam-influenced culture, and they had their own king, Yakubu II, who was killed in 2002, and since then, the line of succession has been kind of disputed and is yet to be installed. I mean,
since 2002.
Like, wives and like over 100 children. The Ga Adangbe peoples are actually found mostly in the capital, Accra, as well as other areas in the southeast. Both men and women are known for being really good boxers. They are also known for making the famous Ghanaian fantasy coffins, a tradition that started in the 1950s in which skilled carpenters will custom make a coffin that are designed to capture the essence of the deceased person's identity. Then, of course, we reach the Ashanti. Now, there's...
Okay.
Man, oh man.
The coffins.
That's dope.
So just make me a quill pen coffin.
A quill pen?
A quill pen.
I don't know what I want, but I want something interesting. A music note. You're not about to have me bent up.
Well, a quill pen, I would just have to, you know.
Nah, babe, that would be dope. Like, you would just be just in the quill pen. Like,
yeah.
That would be...
Put my toes at the ink. The ink.
I'm not going there with you. I'm not going there with you.
Oh my God, I almost choked.
Sentences, but in the simplest way I can put it, the Ashanti have always played probably the most culturally dominating role in the history and development of Ghana. Supposedly, they believe they are descended from the ancient Abyssinians that were pushed south from the Egyptians, and played a huge role in the Atlantic slave trade, as well as the furious rebellions against the British. I mean, they did kind of have to fight like 4 wars over the course of 70 years.
I think that's just interesting.
They're known for
what you
their
just
bold,
said.
rich people, beautiful kente cloth with elaborately designed patterns, and of course, the royal family. Otherwise, a few customs Ghanaians from all people groups follow include things like
never using your left hand to offer a gift, point, or shake someone's hand, as the left hand is considered to be the dirty hand. Many children are named after the day of the week they were born on, per gender. For example, a boy born on Saturday might have the title Kwame, and a girl on Saturday might have Mama. On Sundays, expect to find lots of people dressed in their best clothes, as it's church day. To get someone's attention, you'll probably hear a sharp hissing sound. And for some reason, people don't seem to use umbrellas much in the rain. It's not a taboo. It's just kind of the way things are.
By the way, if you guys are wondering, Noah's not actually Ghanaian. I just wanted to give him more lines in this episode because, you know, that voice. Other types of notable Ghanaian people include Kwame Nkrumah, the first president that led Ghana to independence. Ya Asantewa, the hero queen mother of Ghana, who led a rebellion against the British forces in the late...
Yes.
I want to share something that is like really, really, really personal to me, but I don't know if I should share it.
Maybe wait a little longer to see if you want to give it to him.
It's about her. It's about this whole picture. No, I'm not. I'm not ready
for it. No, they not ready. You ready because you brought it up. They not ready. Y'all ain't ready for it.
I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share.
Want to give them a little tension of it, just a little bit.
Okay, so let me say this.
Just a little bit.
I want to say it because, some two of our supporters asked for us to do this video.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know nothing about Ghana. Well, 2 years ago. No,
Was it 2 years ago?
5 years.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, 'cause
okay, you gotta
Daniel
think about
wasn't
the
born.
babies. Yeah.
So 5 years ago, I didn't know nothing about Ghana. I didn't know nothing about the Ashanti people. I didn't know nothing about this queen right here until I had a dream of her and of the golden seat. And that is what led me to do all of my research. And it was a long dream. Let's just say
And we
that.
cut it short.
Okay.
That's it. We're gonna give it more to
I
it.
would love to hear their thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting though, like the way you even
Because everything,
how it happened at that
Yeah.
time it happened. You know what I'm
everything
saying?
in my dream was true.
It was true. We actually went back, did research on everything, and yeah,
And this, her name, clear as day. Never
and
heard
so
her.
forth and so forth. That's so much more
Yes.
to detail to get into that would like really put you on the edge of your seats. But that's for another video.
So yeah, please let me know your thoughts on that.
100.
19th and early 20th centuries. Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, numerous soccer players. Of course,
Yeah.
British actor Idris Elba.
I don't know
He's a really good
from
actor.
there.
He's a really good
Ghana
actor.
blood, Ghana gets the credit. Well, now Ghana may be pretty stable and prosperous, but of course they couldn't have done it alone. Who does Ghana like to hang with?
Let's see.
Ghana has some of the oldest recorded history in sub-Saharan Africa, with roots that extend beyond the continent. First of all, like other regionally distinct nations, Ghana's people groups have historically had alliances with other neighbors for centuries. The Ivory have strong ties to Togo, the Dagombas in the north love Burkina Faso, and the Ashanti were always in touch with the similar Kwa language-speaking peoples of eastern Ivory Coast. Just like many other post-colonial states, Ghana still maintained close ties to the UK, and almost immediately after independence, set up agreements and policies that encouraged mutual relations. The UK also has the largest community of Ghanaians in the world, followed by New York in the USA, who also has close ties to Ghana, as the East Coast is saturated with Ghanaian communities. When it comes to their best friends, though, most Ghanaians I talked to have said it would probably be Nigeria. Although they have a heated rivalry in almost everything, be it music, soccer,
That
or
is
even
funny.
this, they still share a deep bond that historically tied them for centuries, especially during colonial times when they shared a mutual struggle. Sierra Leone, though, is kind of like the cute but dramatic girlfriend that they've been with forever, who keeps getting into trouble with the World Health Organization. In conclusion, you know what? Noah, we need that voice again. I'll let you take the conclusion.
Sure thing. In conclusion, Ghana is like one of the few sub-Saharan African countries that transitioned beautifully out of its dark ages, maintained its regional cultures, and stabilized its economy, always keeping a tincture of Royal African charm. Stay tuned. Greece is...
Greece is coming up! Greece is coming up! Still my show. Love me. Love me!
He is so
That is funny.
hilarious.
Bro, I really enjoy watching him, man. He puts it out there very detailed, and he orchestrates his show very well, man. Shout out to him, bro. Hey, y'all subscribe to his channel.
Yes,
Subscribe to his channel.
definitely.
There's a really strange fact about Michael Jackson in this video. You'll have to find out by watching this video. Ha! You can't click away. I got you curious.
It's time to learn geography.
Bonjour à tous, je suis votre hôte Barbie et je sais, j'aurais pu faire cette vidéo plus tôt sous la lettre C pour Côte d'Ivoire, mais comme vous le savez, ceci est une émission d'anglais, alors nous allons utiliser le mot Ivory Coast, d'accord? Whew, 3 months of Duolingo, ha! I love this app! Now, if you don't know anything about Ivory Coast, basically it's like Ghana's French-speaking rival and the land of chocolate. So anyway, the Ivory Coast is located in West Africa, bordered by 5 other countries and the Gulf of Guinea to the south. The country is divided into 12 districts plus 2 district-level autonomous cities. Each of these cities is kind of considered like a capital, making Ivory Coast a dual capital country. The first one being Abidjan, the largest city along the coast, known as the economic capital, and Yamoussoukro, the political capital with all the government buildings, which was deliberately built to centralize the location of political power. The weird thing is, although the cities have mayors, since 2011, the 12 non-autonomous districts still have yet to appoint governors. So technically, by legal definition, the districts are more like theoretical entities rather than actual functioning ones. And if you really think about it, that kind of means they don't actually exist. It's like, hey, let's split this pie. Sure. Now, in my head, I split it into 2 pieces. You have to guess where I cut it. After Abidjan, known as the Paris of Africa, the second largest city would be Bouaké and Doloa, which also have the largest and only 2 international airports, being Abidjan Port Boué or Félix Houphouët-Boigny International. That's where I cut it.
That was people?
After Abidjan, known as the Paris of Africa, the second largest city would be Bouaké and Doloa, which also have the largest and only two international airports, being Abidjan Port Boué or Félix Houphouët-Boigny International and Bouaké International. The borders with Liberia mostly run along the Kavala and Sestos rivers, the Laraba with Burkina Faso, and a portion of the Black Volta with Ghana. Keep in mind that much like Ghana, historically before European colonialism, the Ivory Coast was split into various kingdoms and tribal territory clusters, which, if we really want to get technical, looks like this. But if we really want to summarize the parent groups, it looks a little bit something like this, with four-ish main branches: the Kwa, the Kru, the Gur, and the Mande. The Kwa branch Akan peoples are kind of like the cousins of the Ashanti people that we mentioned in the Ghana episode, and they make up the largest group in the Ivory Coast. The most notable tribe being the Baoulé, founded by Queen Poku. Oh, and at one point in the late 60s, the Sanwi people tried to break away and become independent, and I'm not even joking, they declared Michael Jackson to be their king in 1992. So if there's one thing you need to take away from this episode, it's that Michael Jackson literally was a king in Africa. Anyway, surprisingly, the country doesn't really have any offshore islands or islets. The only real islands can be found around Abidjan Lagoon. The cool thing, though, is that most of Ivory Coast coasts, that sounds a little weird, has wonderful open unspoiled beaches. The bad news is almost all of it is inaccessible due to the choppy river estuaries and lack of natural ports hindering the development of beach towns. That means that other than Abidjan, there are virtually no coastal roads. Otherwise, some top notable sites of the Ivory Coast might include places like any of the national parks, like the largest one, Comoé, St. Paul's Cathedral, the Civilian Museum, the Crocodile House, the Jardin Botanique de Binaville, Paradisia Abidjan. Sassandra has a ton of historical buildings and monuments, the beaches of Grand Bassam, the waterfalls at Man, the Pyramid Building, and finally the Basilique Notre-Dame de la Paix, or the Basilica of Our Lady of Peace, the largest basilica in the world, larger than St. Peter's in the Vatican. Sweet, I think that just about covers all of it. And speaking of sweet, let's get chocolatey. The Ivory Coast got its name from the historically major export of ivory back centuries ago before it became super illegal. But in all honesty, it should be called the Cocoa Coast. That sounds better. Cocoa Coast. Or en français, Côte de Cacao. Even that sounds cool. Côte d'Ivoire, pouvez-vous juste changer votre nom? Anyway, the Ivory Coast lies in sub-Saharan Africa, and much like all the other West African countries, the land is mostly flat with undulating plains in the south with lush tropical forests, whereas the northern regions are drier and semi-arid savannas and grasslands. Basically, by the coast, humid most. Northward bound, drier ground. Keep in mind that rule doesn't apply everywhere. Namibia be like, by the coast, dry, northward, drier. As mentioned before, the highest point in the west is Mount Nimba, which is basically the African version of South America's Mount Roraima, which is like the peak shared by 3 countries. The country is fed by 3 main rivers and their estuaries, the Sassandra, Kamoe, and the longest river, the Bandama, which flows into the largest lake in the central part of the country, Lake Kossou, which was artificially created after the Kossou Dam was built on the river in 1973. Because water is pretty much everywhere, this allows Ivory Coast to flourish in flora and fauna, with over 1,200 animal species and 4,700 plants, everything from jackals, monkeys, chameleons, panthers, pygmy hippopotami, and the national animal, the African elephant, can be found. Despite the abundance of water, only about 10% of the land is arable, as about a third of the country is forested. Nonetheless, 75% of the workforce uses that arable land to grow everything from coffee, oil palms, rubber, and their pride and joy, the national crop that they are the #1 producer in the world, cocoa. Since they export so much, about 25% of all exports in total, chances are, without even knowing it, you may have all...
See, this is why we do our own research.
Yeah.
Because different videos always have different statistics.
For different times?
For different times. And it be,
Yeah.
you know, outdated information sometimes. But
True. I'll let y'all tell it, though. We'll
Yeah.
let y'all get a whack at it. Go ahead and
but
talk about it.
we know the whole coast grows
It's full of it,
over
yeah.
there, so-
100%. 100%.
Okay.
Unique.
already eaten some kind of chocolate confection made from cocoa grown here. It's such a common commodity that half the time farmers don't even know what it's used for. They've never had chocolate. They just grow it because they know it's an in-demand product.
Right.
VPro Metropolis did a great video showing a cocoa farmer who tried chocolate for the first time.
Vous n'avez jamais goûté au chocolat?
Non, non, on n'a jamais goûté au chocolat. Si c'est pas aujourd'hui, c'est doux.
And this grow in my backyard?
Right.
You mean tell me all this? Oh my God, I'm so upset.
Man,
Bro.
love chocolate.
Yeah, that's a shock right there for them. I know it is.
Oh, c'est doux là.
Vous aimez?
C'est vraiment intéressant.
Check it out, it's a great video, it's a cool report. But going back to food, dishes in the Ivory Coast pretty much follow the same West African format, you know, lots of cassavas, plantains, slow simmered stews and sauces with peanuts, grilled or dried fish and chicken. However, two things they definitely specialize in and love are atieke cassava mash with kajenu stew and the famous Ivorian land snails, which can grow huge and are typically grilled or eaten with sauce. The interesting thing...
But potty worms, out the window. We have huge snails on a list for Sierra to try.
No.
Yeah,
want to try it.
nah.
That was huge.
I don't know about
That
no.
was big. You won't do the snail. You'll do the potty worms.
Why we haven't even comparison?
Cause I mean, you just
I know I mentioned it, but I was
volunteered
just
me.
saying. But it's like it's slimy.
No, I've actually seen the slime from the snails. They used to get on my nerves. They used to be right in front of my front door.
Man, them snails look
I
like they
can't do
about
the snails.
fist size, man. Them
No,
things huge.
they look huge. Grilled
What? That's what they say, grilled?
might be crispy, just like the potty
Girl,
worms.
fried
Got you,
snail.
man.
Is that
Okay.
even after 2 civil wars in the 21st century, the Ivory Coast still moves forward as the largest economy in the West African Economic Monetary Union, which is basically the French-speaking countries of ECOWAS. Hey! Oh, whatever. All your people are like quadrilingual. I'm pretty sure you speak enough French to get by. By the way, ECOWAS has a really cool-looking headquarters building in Togo. Anyway, yeah, the Ivory Coast actually didn't fall in the same pattern of many other African states in which a government uprising led to a dictator that ruined everything. One man actually kind of got things moving along, and we'll talk more about him in... Okay, first of all, Ivorian. That's what you call these people.
Ivorian.
Ivorians, not
Ivorian.
Ivory
Ivorian.
Coastians. Just getting that little PSA out there. Anyway, the country has about 25 million people and has about 60 different tribes. These tribes are divided into 5 principal ethnic groups, the largest one being the Akan people at about 42%, the Gurs at about 18%, the Northern Mandes at about 16%, Krus at about 11%, and Southern Mandes at 10%. Whereas the rest are made up of other people groups, mostly other Africans from abroad, and non-Africans like Lebanese and French people. They use the West African CFA franc as their currency, they use a Type C plug outlet, and they drive on the right side of the road. Now, the Ivorian people are quite diverse. However, as a former French colony, the French language kind of unites them all. Nonetheless, out of the 65-ish languages spoken throughout the country, the Kwa languages have the most speakers. And the second probably belongs to the Dioula language in the West, which is related to the Mande and Mandinka languages that we already discussed in the Gambia and Guinea episodes, which is sometimes written in the cool-looking Nko script created by this guy in 1949, making it one of the few indigenous African writing systems. See, small stuff like that. That's why I love this show. I have the best job ever. Religion plays an interesting role as about a third of the population identifies as Christian or Catholic, about 39% are Muslim, while a quarter are animist. All 3 of these groups live alongside each other relatively peacefully. In a nutshell, during the tribal kingdom eras, Muslim traders came in from the north around the first millennia. Around the 15th century, Portuguese and French people stopped by and started trading. The French got a little overprotective because they didn't want the English to dominate the Gulf of Guinea. Then there was that short-lived Wassalu Empire that tried to revolt. This guy became the father of independence, and in 1960 they broke free from the French. From there he became the leader for about 33 years. However, things were actually, in contrast to other African states, pretty good. I mean, sure, he had some controversies, but overall, the country became the most prosperous in West Africa. People were living better, the economy was booming. I mean, technically he was a dictator, but he kind of didn't suck. Then the 90s came and his successor totally sucked. Long story short, 1999 coup d'etat, then this guy stepped in, then this guy was elected, things got worse, 2002 civil war, things got worse, 2010 elections, this guy was voted in, then there was a short second civil war, but then things kind of calmed down and the economy is back and booming again. It's weird, it's like the whole time all these wars were happening, they were still maintaining composure and doing international business. And that's kind of the theme of the Ivory Coast. A little war can't hurt them. After President Ouattara took over, he actually did kind of a good job doubling the infrastructure budget from 15% to over 30%, and the economy grew at its peak at around 9% regularly. They were like, look people, we don't have time for this. Which one do you like? Guns or money?
Money.
Otherwise, the Ivory Coast is laden with amazing, colorful tribes, traditions, and customs. Some of the most notable tribes being the Bilfo tribe with their adobe clay houses, the Dan tribe with their spinning warrior and stilt dances, the acrobatics of the Korhogo tribe, the terracotta funerals by the Akan people, the Senufo people with their rich Korhogo cloth, the Yakuba girl juggling dance, the Baule tribe loves brass art. Many tribes come together for the huge Fête des Masques, or the Mask Festival, which is the biggest one in the country. There's also the Fête du Dupri in Gaumont, where people run around naked at midnight. You're never short of music and art. In fact, the Ivorian movie Black and White in Color became the first winner of an Oscar by a Black Republic. Abidjan is also...
That's cool. Okay, so y'all already know we love to dig more into the culture, so drop some links in our reaction request form in the description box to some of those festivals. Of course, not the last one.
Please, not the last one.
Show that.
Yeah, someone gonna do it. They're gonna be like,
Right.
ha, 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 ha,
I need y'all to watch this. So yeah, let us know all of the different festivals that you guys would like for us to show on the channel.
Yes.
kind of seen as like the fashion capital of sub-Saharan Africa, both in Western and native designs. Due to their close ties to France, the latest get-ups can be found on runways and boutiques all across the city. Some notable people of Ivorian descent from the Ivory Coast might include people like their only gold medal winner, Sheikh Salah Cisse, Alpha Blondy, actor Bambajan Bamba, Constance Amiot, Sidiki Bakaba, Amadou Kourouma, Bernard Dadier, Vecho Lolas, and the pride and glory of the Ivory Coast, Didier Drogba. In the end, the Ivory Coast knows how to manage themselves and dust off pretty well with a touch of class. Let's see how classy they are with others.
I already have my 3.
You got 3?
What about you? 3.
Nah, go ahead. I'm gonna just cheat off of your answers.
No.
You heard me, huh? I'm gonna cheat off your answers.
You gotta.
Lord Jesus.
Attempt.
I'm gonna go with Ghana for one. I think
Okay.
they have a lot of likeness when it comes, especially when it comes to food. And I'm gonna just stick with that.
Okay. So I say Ghana, Gambia. What was the other one?
See how she do?
I forgot. But
She
then
never
two.
had 3.
Yes, I did.
She never had 3. You only had 1.
I forgot.
2.
Guinea, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my 3
We
best
do-
friends.
Okay.
No surprise, the Ivory Coast is a West African powerhouse that has high position of authority of influence in the region. First of all, the country generally gets along with the other francophone neighbors around them, especially landlocked Burkina Faso and Mali, as they kind of act as like the gateway to the ocean for them and their trade needs. Ghana is like their closest frenemy. They share some of the same tribes and people groups. Business is always moving back and forth between them. But when it comes to regional dominance, the Ivory Coast will never hesitate to push Ghana out of the spotlight. There was even that time in the 90s when a riot broke out over a soccer match between the two. When it comes to their best friends, however, surprisingly, many might say France. The Ivory Coast has always had like a privileged role
see
as
that
like the
coming.
jewel of France's
We see that
African
coming.
relations. Their founding father insisted relations be maintained, presidents have visited each other, their militaries have cooperated in conflicts, numerous citizens on both sides have immigrated to each other's countries, and they love sharing everything from cuisine to the latest fall fashion line. In conclusion, the Ivory Coast kind of fell into a reputation crisis in which they were like, look guys, we were doing so well for decades, we are not going to end up like all the other African countries that let war destroy them. Now shut up and start making money. Stay tuned! Jamaica is coming up next.
Man, he mean that though.
That one threw me for a loop.
Yeah, it did as well. I mean, you never like.
Because
yeah.
I feel like
That's my last thought actually.
African countries is always going to side with the African countries. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's about leadership though. So whoever they
Okay.
feel they want to work with in the future, that's who they. I mean, you gotta think about it. French got a lot of money. Like you got all that runways and stuff that they got going on.
Oh, yeah.
And with the patterns and with the fashion that they have, they bring it up there to them, and they kind of get a lot more publicity. Hey, come to my Ivory Coast. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Yeah. So other than that, they killed it, bro. I think it's pretty dope. But the frenemy with Ghana,
Right. I mean, at least it was up there.
I got one right.
Right.
Have you been in Benin? Well, you have an invitation to begin in Benin. When in doubt, just use puns for the intro. Score!
Get it. Oh.
It's time to learn geography
Now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Paul Barbato. Today we head to West Africa for the first time. But before we do, you know the drill. Let's dissect the flag. The flag of Benin is pretty simple. It just has 3 colors, green, yellow, and red. The yellow and green represent the savannas and the palm groves located in the south of the country, and the red represents the, say it with me, the bloodshed for those who fought for the country. In another respect, the flag also utilizes the Pan-Africanist movement colors to signify the unity and strength of the people after colonization and pride in their identity. That was so much easier from Belize's flag from last time. All right, moving on. Benin may be a very narrow and thin country, but don't be fooled, it has a long and crazy history behind its location. First of all, Benin is located in West Africa, below the Sahara line, bordered by 4 other countries.
Benin almost look like a snapping turtle.
A snapping turtle.
Yeah, you don't see him reaching for the fish?
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, turn your head to the side just a tad bit.
Because at first I'm like, what?
Man.
Go Burkina Faso, Niger, and Nigeria, with the Gulf of Guinea to the south. People will tell you that the shape of Benin kind of looks like a key. I personally think it looks like a mushroom cloud explosion right before the top of the mushroom cloud expands and gets crazy. The capital is Porto Novo, which means new port in Portuguese, despite the fact that French is the official language, and is located in the south. However, the seat of government and most governmental buildings are located just a few kilometers southwest in the largest city, Côte, located on the coast. The country is divided up into 12 departments, which are further divided into 77 communities. Originally, the country had 6, but then in 1999, the original 6 split up, and then Arakira, Plateau, Litoral, Jogu, Dogbatota and Colines were added, each with their own capital city. Although the coastline is only about 75 miles long, or 120 kilometers, the majority of people live in the south within 100 kilometers of the coast. However, the north has some decently sized towns that hold their ground, especially in the Donga and Arakora districts along the border by Togo, such as Natitingo and Jogo. In the far north is a disputed patch of land that they have with Burkina Faso near the Beninese town of Porga, which has the world's most boring airport ever. A large portion of the borders go along rivers, the Penjari River for Burkina Faso, the Okpara for Nigeria, and further north along the Niger River, Benin smiles at Niger and says, haha, my side has lush green savannas and your side is just dry desert. Most of Benin's land borders aren't really tightly marked or enforced, giving people easy access from Nigeria and Togo. I mean, half the city and town of Ilara and Tuandi are split between Benin with Nigeria and Togo, and nobody really seems to care. As we'll soon find out though, Benin kind of has a slight rivalry with its little brother Togo to the west, and you can kind of see that in the south where Benin is like, I'll just take these extra 10 miles of coastline from you because rather than take the main tributary to the sea, I'm gonna follow this small little creek that juts inland. Oh, and I'll call the area Grand Popo because that's what I am, Togo. I'm the Grand Popo, and don't you forget it. Sorry, Benin, but when you look at the map, it does kind of look like you pulled a geographical jerk move. But hey, you're not the only one. Namibia? Well, Benin may be small with some interesting perimeters, but what really counts is the secret special things in those perimeters, things that we'll discuss in... Alright, we connected the dots and now let's color in this slab of sovereignty, shall we? Benin's landscape is generally flat for the most part. The country gradually slopes a little bit upwards the further north you go until you reach the Atakora mountain range along the northwest border with Togo. With the highest point, Mont Sokbaro, at only about 650 meters or 2,200 feet above sea level, being in this area. However, generally there are four main geographical areas that divide up this country. The low-lying sandy coast with marshes and lagoons connected to the ocean, the plateaus with valleys and rivers where the majority of ecoregions and nature preserves are found in, and then you got the flatlands with the dry savannas and rocky hills further north, and finally the Atakora mountain region in the northwest. Here's the thing, Benin kind of has two-ish separate climates, the south and the north. The south is generally hot and humid year-round and gathers most of the rainfall. However, in the north, the closer you get to the Sahel... Oh wait, I have to explain what the Sahel is. The Sahel is basically this area of northern Africa, which is kind of like the transition region between the Sahara and the semi-arid savannas that are trying to like hang on for dear life and not become a desert. It's like a desert savanna battlefield. Join me, savannah. Become one with the desert. No, I want to drink some water and like grow plants. Y'all deserts, out of my face. Out of my face. So anyway, Benin is located right here, right below the Sahel line. This means that as the Sahel and Sahara are battling it out, the north part of Benin gets some of the backlash in the form of a dry wind called the harmattan. This wind dries up the grass and vegetation annually and leaves a veil of dust that hangs over everything. This is also the season where farmers burn the brush to help nourish the soil for next year's harvest. Speaking of which, Benin is, as many African nations are, an agriculture-driven economy in which food items and cotton make up the majority of the GDP. However, they do have one secret weapon, gold. Locked away in the veins of the Atakora Mountains, close to the towns of Kwatena and Chantangu, is Benin's largest gold mines, which in recent years has contributed to as high as around 20% of overall exports, mostly from foreign investors like China and the European countries. See, that would have been a great transition for the friend zone, but we have to follow the format again. Here's demographics.
Now you can't use that for friend zone later.
The people of Benin. Now this is where things get interesting, and then confusing, and then weird, and then a little scary, and then back to interesting. First of all, the country has about 10 million people, or about the same size as Sweden. Now, here's where things get a little complicated. In terms of tribal ethnic groups, Benin has 42, the largest ones, the Fon, the Aja, the Yoruba, the Bariba, the Fula, the Otomari, the Kabye, and the Dendi. Speaking of which, Ajas and Fons, in addition to Ewes and Ga-Adangbe tribes found along the coast of West Africa, make up the majority of tribes that were taken to the Americas from this region during the transatlantic slave trade. Many of them headed to North America and the Caribbean, as opposed to the Africans from the southern regions of Africa, like Angola and Cape Verde, that went to the South American regions like Brazil and Venezuela. Also, although debatable, it's been said that voodoo originated from the Aja and Mina tribes, whom brought the belief to the Americas, most heavily in Haiti. To this day, about 17% of the country still practices one variation or another of voodoo. However, the rate is even higher in neighboring Togo, with many in Nigeria as well, making the area unofficially known as the Voodoo Coast. Traditional African religions, in addition to voodoo, make up about half of the population, whereas Christians, mostly in the south, make up about 30%, and Muslims, mostly in the north, make up about 20%. However, it's kind of confusing because
I'm thinking.
What you thinking?
I'm just thinking. What you thinking?
Okay, so what I'm thinking is this is one of the first countries that we have seen that 50% of the people practice their traditional beliefs.
Right. And go ahead.
What? Because like even in the Nigeria episode, we saw that it was split between Muslim and Christianity. So this was interesting to see that. So now I
Yeah.
understand they are, you know,
And
they
being
made the name for themselves.
also being the first time reacted to Benin, you know what I'm saying? Now that I don't know how many supporters we do have from there, but we did have a conversation where how many, you know, misconceptions you guys come across on a daily basis, and voodoo was kind of one of the topics. But we didn't know it was so heavy
Yeah.
here. Now, if
Yeah,
you guys
in
would have been
this
like,
country.
oh man, for sure over here, like, then we'd have been like, oh, we never knew. Y'all would have taught us that, but now we teaching everyone about it.
Yeah, we learning together.
And another interesting thing I was thinking about was, you know, just from Africa and with slavery and all, voodoo was a thing that they did even before slavery, right? And when it did come to the Americas, because he mentioned that, it was more looked down upon. You know what I'm saying? Because I guess from the times that they was doing it and exposed to it, they was traumatized.
Who was traumatized? The
The
other
people.
people?
The other people was traumatized by it. So when they came back to the Americans, it was like, this is one that we will not let people highlight as if this is something they can definitely dive into.
Yeah.
But again, it's a conversation. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because in the studies of slavery, that was one of the things that the people were punished for if they found them practicing their traditional beliefs. So I would think is, look, you don't have to agree to what someone else's does. You got to respect it, though.
I feel that. Yeah.
Okay. And it's not something we practice, but
It's
we
a conversation.
respect
Like I
people's
said,
culture.
yeah, we respect the culture and it's a conversation. It's definitely a conversation.
Yes.
Beninese people will overlap traditional beliefs with Christianity and Islam. Nominally, about 42% identify as Christian. However, doctrinally, it's more like a 12% fusion Christianity compromise buffer zone. And the same goes for those who claim to be Muslims. Although small and less than 1%, the majority of the white population in Benin are mostly Christian missionaries who provide aid and long-term assistance, such as economical and medical help, as well as a few French nationals and their families left over from the former years before Benin gained their independence from France. Now, we don't talk too much about history here, but in order to understand the people of Benin, you kind of have to understand where they came from. Eventually, the Fon people set up the Kingdom of Dahomey in the 17th century, and they were a very militaristic people group, sometimes referred to as Black Sparta, in which they even instituted a female soldier corps called the Ahosi. Eventually, the Portuguese came in, and the kingdom did business by selling war captives as slaves to the Portuguese. After the slave trade died down in the late 1800s, France swept in and nabbed the area, recalling it French Dahomey. Finally, in 1960, France let go and gave them their independence. So, as you can see, Benin kind of has both a Portuguese and French-influenced past. Now, this is where things get a little strange. Remember in the Albania video, we talked about the Sino-Soviet split? Albania actually decided to side with China and not Russia, which may have been a bad decision. The reason being because that made China Albania's only ally in the world. Oh man, the quality was so bad back then. I tried being my own cameraman and I didn't even have any audio equipment. Anyway, during the 70s, Benin for a short period of time was actually under a Marxist-Leninist-based republic, and kind of like Angola, remember? Benin was the only country in West Africa to do this, and it kind of shocked the world. It all had to do with this guy, Mathieu Kérékou. If you want to know anything about Benin, you kind of have to know this one guy. Long story short, he ran the country with an iron fist. He kind of ruined everything, businesses, education, banking. Then he tried to finance the country by taking nuclear waste from Russia and France. Bad idea. And then finally, after riots broke out from his own regime for not having enough money to pay them, renounced Marxism. And finally, in 1990, a new constitution was complete and the modern-day Republic of Benin was born. Kind of. I mean, the first real free and fair election kind of happened in 2006, but still, they're working on it. How did all of that happen in a span of like 11 years? Other people were involved. People we'll talk about in Benin has a quirky, unexpected history in friendship. First of all, like mentioned before, they have historical ties to both Portugal and France. However, ties with France are much stronger as the country didn't engage in slave trading and the language became official. Nonetheless, most Beninese people take a meh approach to the French, not really enamored by their presence, but at the same time not dwelling on the drama of being occupied in the past either. After independence, Benin took a strange move and decided to side with the Soviets. After independence, the USSR jumped in and coaxed Benin by being being one of the first to recognize their sovereignty. They built up relations fast and sent ambassadors, and finally, that's when Mathieu Kérékou started a military coup and took over, driven by Soviet-influenced Marxist ideologies, to rule the nation. Various cooperation treaties were signed, the Russian Navy had a port in West Africa they could use, and even after the dropping of Marxism in Benin and the fall of the Soviet Union, the newly established Russian Federation still maintained good relations and ties with Benin. Togo is kind of seen as like the weird little brother that Benin kind of rolls their eyes at. Culturally and historically, they've been close through thick and thin. They both speak French and were part of the French Empire, although Togo was under Germany for a while. And they both share some of the same tribes, like the Aja and the Mina tribes. Nonetheless, Benin considers themselves very different as a whole and claims Togolese people are way too superstitious, especially in the large population of voodoo adherents, with the strange rituals and even building things like a temple devoted to snakes. When it comes to their best friend, however, more or less, Benin would probably say Nigeria. In fact, Benin depends on Nigeria for the majority of its export sector and trade. Parts of Benin were historically part of the Nigerian Yoruba tribe Oyo Empire, and to this day, tons of Yorubas live in Benin. In conclusion, as small as the country is, Benin's story is gigantically laden with empires, kingdoms, colonies, and gold. Keep writing that story, Benin. Stay tuned, Bhutan is coming up next.
Okay.
Interesting.
This one was very informative.
Shocking.
You know, we did react to the Benin Empire, I believe. I think
Maybe.
we did.
We'll have to fact check. Yeah.
We did. So it was interesting learning a little bit of their background and then, you know, how they came to be.
Yeah, just one thing was missing out of this whole clip. Food.
Yeah, no food.
I like to know about the food.
Hey Geography peeps, so we're back in Africa and you came just at the right time because as of the upload of this video, Burkina Faso is going through a huge transition and find out why in about 3, 2, 1.
It's time to learn geography
Now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. So Burkina Faso is one of those African countries you've probably heard of that has a lot of drama going on. However, there's a whole world of underlying fascination and culture awaiting for you once you observe things a little closer. That being said, let's dissect the flag. The flag has two equally sized horizontal bands of red and green with a yellow star resting in the middle. These colors are the Pan-African colors to symbolize the breaking away and unity of post-colonial nations in Africa. Adopted in 1984, the red symbolizes the revolution, even though the guy leading that revolution would eventually get assassinated by another guy leading another revolution. And the green represents the abundance of agricultural and natural resources, which I'm not trying to be offensive, Burkina Faso, but that's kind of not really true, but if you say so. And finally, the yellow star represents the guiding light of the revolution. All right, that's pretty much it. Moving on. Okay, first of all, Burkina Faso is arguably the country with the world's most interesting sounding names. I mean, you have places like Borum Borum, like a car, and then you have places like Gorom Gorom, like a Swedish car. Gorom, I don't know. There's a place called Rambo and Bobo Dioulasso. A lot of these names come from tribal words, and the cool thing is that Burkina Faso is actually really good at intermixing its ethnic influences pretty well. In fact, the name Burkina Faso comes from the Moore word Burkina, meaning honorable people, and Faso, which is the Dioula word, meaning fatherland. The usage of different languages in the name symbolizes the unity between the many ethnic groups. It would kind of be like if Canada called itself La Pays Parlementaire Fédérale Nation of Canada. Oh, même pas un rêve, il neigera en enfer avant que cela arrive. Sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves, and we haven't even shown that Earth zoom-in motion graphic thing that we always show. Can we do that now? Ah, great, here we go. Okay, Burkina Faso is landlocked, located in West Africa, surrounded by 6 other countries, and is divided into 13 administrative regions, each with its own governor. The capital is, get this, the name of the capital is Ouagadougou. I just can't. That is just, I love, it sounds like a dance move. Oh yeah, I gotta teach you guys geography or something like that. Burkina Faso's old name actually used to be Upper Volta, or French Upper Volta when it was part of the French Empire, named after the 3 Volta rivers, the black, the red, and the white Voltas, which also would explain the former flag. You might ask, well, if it was called Upper Volta, then where was Lower Volta? Was it Ghana? To be frank, no, there never really was a Lower Volta. However, all 3 Volta rivers do kind of drain into Lake Volta in Ghana, so I guess in an unofficial sense, Ghana is kind of like like the Lower Volta. When it was under the French Empire, Burkina Faso was kind of utilized as like a bridge nation and wasn't really exploited much for its natural resources. The country was pretty much targeted solely for the purpose of giving direct access from the coastal colonies to the desert holdings like Mali and Niger. Yes, people, that's how you pronounce it. Niger, not Niger, not Niger, and definitely not that offensive word that I know you're all thinking about and getting all 13-year-old Japanese schoolgirl giggly about, Bob Saget. It's pronounced Niger. It's kind of weird because 19 provinces in Burkina Faso have like this weird fusion contiguous territory agreement with Mali and Niger under this thing called the Liptako Gourma Authority, which basically administers the resources and power cooperations between the peoples of the entire region of all three countries. It's kind of like, we're all from three different countries, but let's pretend like that doesn't really matter in this one specific region. Deal? Deal. Otherwise, Burkina Faso has quite a few noticeable places that have their own cultural flair. Typically, towns will have their own contrasting architectural style based off of the tribes that are predominantly inhabiting that area, like the thick red clay houses of Kumi, the elaborately embellished pattern houses of Tiabele, the spiky mud mosque of Bobo Dioulasso. Otherwise, Ouagadougou has its own taste in modern buildings and offices, but with a dry red clay African ambiance that gives its distinct cultural character. Want to know another thing that gives Burkina Faso its character? Burkina Faso's landscape plays a huge role in how people live and engage with each other on a daily basis. First of all, as a landlocked country, Burkina Faso obviously has no access to the sea, so instead relies on its system of rivers and lakes for irrigation. Remember how we talked about the Sahel in the Benin video? Well, the northern part of Burkina Faso is kind of like entirely in it. This means that the northern region of Burkina Faso, appropriately named the Sahel region, is the driest part in the entire country and has a desert-like atmosphere. The further south you go, the greener and wetter it gets until you are literally in humid forest zones. In general though, one thing that you can kind of expect in Burkina Faso is a lot of red dirt. The soil in many parts has a noticeably dusty red hue that kind of gives the entire country a rustic African appeal. Unfortunately, as a whole, Burkina Faso doesn't really have many internal natural resources, there's no oil, and many of the cash crops aren't really extensively grown. Despite the fragile soil conditions, about 80% of the population lives on subsistence agriculture. In fact, despite plagues of locusts, desertification, and drought, about 3/4 of the people still live in the countryside and prefer agricultural lifestyles. It's just a thing they do and have been doing for centuries. The French colonial administrator R. de la Vignette wrote in 1946 that we came from industrialized Europe where factories are joyless affairs and found people who work to music. Typically, drummers still accompany farmers in Burkina Faso to this very day. The most common crops distributed domestically.
That's one thing that we all have in common.
I feel that.
And even though we are not like, dang, I lost my thought. But I do know, like, we still cling to music. We still write to music. Like, I just feel like music is just embedded in the diaspora.
Yeah, we was definitely born with rhythm.
Yes.
Yes, like we know a good beat, like.
And the beat of the drum.
For real.
And internationally are peanuts, millet, sorghum. However, the economy is heavily centralized around work to music. Typically, drummers still accompany farmers in Burkina Faso to this very day. The most common crops distributed domestically and internationally are peanuts, millet, sorghum. However, the economy is heavily...
Peanuts, millet, and sorghum? Sorghum? What is sorghum? I'm not sure what sorghum is. I seen it, but it's like, I mean, that's a little nice. That's nice resources. I feel like people who want some peanuts. I feel like, because I go to restaurants at times and I see peanuts, like a big box of peanuts, Five Guys, if I'm not mistaken. Texas Roadhouse. They got, location where they got peanuts at, but I'm just like, it's not bad to have. I feel like people want
because you like peanut butter.
Okay, you see.
I'm going to go get you a barrel of peanuts.
Nah, whoa. I don't want a barrel of peanuts. You could do a big barrel of peanut butter jars.
I already have.
Centralized around cotton and gold. Burkinabe cotton is some of the cheapest cotton you can buy on the market right now and comes in very good quality. Gold found in various mines scattered throughout the country respectively make up an almost equal share of an export sector, and together collectively gold and cotton alone make up about 70% of all exports. Nonetheless, Burkina Faso still has a few impressive geological tricks up its sleeve. One of the most recognizable natural landmarks of this country would be the Sindou Peaks near Banafora. These curiously eroded rock formations dispersed among the terrain give a wonderful visual experience, almost on par with the Hunan province rock pillars in China. But adjacent to the falls is another strangely eroded rock formation with stone ledges carved in an almost ovular fashion. Now, Burkina Faso's land may be on the brink of surviving, but the people sure know how to look good in the process. Okay, just in case if you didn't get it from the beginning, the people of Burkina Faso are called Burkinabes. Got it? Good. Burkina Faso has about 17.5 million people. The ethnic majority at about half of the entire population identify as Mossi from the Mossi tribe. About 10% are Fulani, Lobis, Mandes, and Bobos. Each make up about 7% of the population each, and the rest of the population is comprised of about 60 different tribes and people groups. Faith-wise, somewhere around 60% of the country follows Malakite Sunni Islam, heavily influenced on the doctrines of Sufism, whereas about 30% of the country identifies as Christian. The remainder typically follows some form of animism and traditional beliefs. The country's official language is French, however there are 3 regional languages that exist. More, mostly spoken by the Mossi, Mandinka, mostly spoken in the west by the Bobo, and Bambara, mostly spoken in the north close to Mali. Although Fulfulde, the language of the Fulani, is also widely spoken, it doesn't really encompass any specific region as they're kind of widely spread out throughout the country, so they don't really get a regional recognition. Now here's the thing, Burkina Faso is a pretty low-income country. Most of the people live off of $1 a day, and the country depends heavily off of aid from the IMF and World Bank. It's also one of the countries with the highest birth rates, as women typically on average have about 6 children each, which in return has exploded the population almost 5-fold in the past half-century. Now in order to understand Burkina Faso, you have to kind of understand what has happened to it and what is happening to it today. In the shortest condensed way I can put this, shortly after the French left and they gained independence in 1960, the country got a president who was later usurped by a revolution led by Thomas Sankara, who acted on Marxist ideologies, often referred to as the Che Guevara of Africa. Sankara was then assassinated by another guy named Blaise Compaoré. Eventually he was taken over by the storming of the parliament by youth revolts. Compaoré resigned and fled the country, and the ruins of parliament are now a tourist attraction. After 2 weeks of intense negotiations with political and military leaders, the country elected retired diplomat Michel Kafando to act as an interim president until November 2015, when elections will determine a new leader. So as we speak right now, Burkina Faso is in a state of legislative limbo. In a few months, we'll find out what Burkina Faso will decide and what direction.
Okay, so obviously this has been some time since then. Right. I mean, almost, a decade, right? So let us know what's going on today. We have done a video, I believe, of this, of going to like their markets or something.
I believe so.
It was with the lady going to their markets. So let us know how things are today.
Yes, 100%.
They'll head into. As we mentioned before, there are many tribes in Burkina Faso. However, the largest one, the Mossi tribe, has historically been the predominant ethnic group in the region. Mossis, like other tribes found in the region, have a heavily equestrian culture, as they are sometimes referred to as the cowboys of Africa, which may explain the huge profusion of horse race betting shops found in the country. French horse races are broadcasted live and Burkinabes love betting on them. This gave them a huge advantage over their southern neighbors, as they were even able to effectively fight off the Atlantic slave traders very well in the early 16th century and remained intact for over 400 years until finally the kingdom was taken over by the French at the end of the 19th century. The cool thing is, according to Mossi tradition, the highest position in Mossi society is the emperor. The emperor, referred to as the Mogonaba, and the current one being Zomwogbo. He is recognized as an authoritative figure and holds substantial power and influence in the country to this day. These days, rugby is actually a little more popular than soccer, especially since Fulgence Ouedraogo was drafted into Montpellier Hérault RC rugby team. He's kind of like a local hero, and since then, Burkinabes have swapped kicking for tackling. Sounds like every roommate situation I've been in. Now let's find out who else Burkina Faso likes to kick, tackle, or hug.
Okay,
when it comes to
friend zone. Okay, so
being
obviously
landlocked,
Ghana.
Yeah, they're landlocked, so
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm curious to know who are their like main resource imports are. Like who they're like who they share with the most, you know what I'm saying?
You think they still have a good relationship with France? Well, yeah, obviously with the races, huh? I would say
potentially. I could give it a go.
Yeah, I would say their friends are France, Niger, Mali, and Ghana.
Yeah, those two. Yeah,
Ghana.
Yeah, I would go with that too.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Let's see.
Friends, Burkina Faso is kind of like, nous ne sommes pas nécessairement amis juste simplement parce que nous parlons français. That being said, Burkina Faso does kind of get along with, or at least tolerates, all of their immediate neighbors and have multilateral agreements, but they aren't exactly yippee-skippy about all of them either. Historically, they have had kind of a lot of conflicts with almost every single one of them. Nonetheless, it's kind of interesting because Burkina Faso does have kind of okay relations with the EU, even though former President Compaoré has been heavily criticized over the decades, and yet chooses to acknowledge underdog areas like Kosovo and and Taiwan, effectively cutting off ties with the People's Republic of China and Serbia. Libya is a huge ally. Both Sankara and Compaoré were both close friends of Gaddafi, and eventually both countries became founding members of the Community of Sahel-Sahara States, an organization that aims to establish free trade in the area. Interestingly enough, Algeria is actually not part of that club, and it all had to do with some kind of political dispute, yada yada yada. When it comes to their best friends, however, more or less they might begrudgingly say the Ivory Coast and Ghana. Even though they've had some drama with the Ivory Coast during the recent civil war, as they were accused of supporting rebel fighters, they still remain the largest trade partners and were at one point the same country under French rule. Ghana has established numerous ties with Burkina Faso, and today they have regular high-level consultations and cooperation commissions, and they even share joint military exercises with each other to encourage diplomacy. In conclusion, Burkina Faso is a land ridden with kings, cowboys, and cotton and conflict, and right now they're in a very tense moment of transition. Burkina Faso. And that's kind of where the camera ran out of memory space. Sorry. Burundi is coming up next.
Okay.
We deal with it, bro. We understand.
Right.
Man, so much more to dive into. I feel like that's the tip of an iceberg when learning. You know what I'm saying? So we'd love to learn a lot more. Definitely about the rugby and the sports with the horse racing and all, you know. That's interesting. I like that as well.
Yeah. So y'all send in some more Burkina Faso videos. We do know that they speak French, so as long as it has English subtitles, it's fine. Send it in. All right.
100%.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you like to support the channel that way, as well as our reaction request form is in our description box below. We'll see you soon.
Peace.